Hello, I am Freema Gottlieb. Welcome to the weekly Torah reading, Parshat Korach. It's not working. There exists a Hasidic understanding that even evil must contain some sparks of light to exist at all. For if evil did not speak the language of goodness, it would have no drawing power. Couching his ambitions, ostensibly totally spiritual, in democratic, inclusive language, Korach challenges his first cousin's leadership by accusing Moses of nepotism, goading him for conferring the high priesthood on his brother, Aaron. Put on the defensive, Moses and Aaron fall on their face. Was Moses unable to remember how he responded to the divine call 40 years earlier at the burning bush when God originally appeared to him and charged him to lead his chosen people? Feeling unworthy, he pleaded desperately that God choose someone else, as he was not a man of words. But God would brook no denial that he had chosen the right man. To make it easier, however, God suggested Moses share the public relations side of the job, the high priesthood, with his older brother, who had better communication skills and was more approachable. What did Korach say to provoke such anguish and self-doubt at this later stage in Moses' career, when he was more experienced and had proved his worthiness countless times over? You take too much power to yourselves. All the community is holy, and God is in their midst, says Korach. Could Moses and Aaron have reacted this way precisely because they too were momentarily seduced by Korach's gift for flowery speech? Years later, the prophet Isaiah expresses almost the same sentiment in relation to Israel. Your people are totally righteous, a branch of my planting, the work of my hand, in which I glory. The least shall become 1,000. As Chabad has it, in every Jew there is a point of the divine, das Pintelayid. Korach's entire stand turns on the translation of kol, all. While the sentiment he expressed may have contained a deep truth, the meaning is not precise. With the incontestable proposition that all Jews have some point of holiness in them, was he suggesting that each Jew was equally holy in his or her own way, or that each one of us has an equal access to God, or even that, as a collective, the people are holy, absolutely? To describe what equality signifies in the next world, the Ishbitzer, a 19th century Hasidic thinker, quotes from the Talmud the wonderful metaphor of the circle dance. In the future, that's in Olam Haba, God will make a circle dance of the tzaddikim, the righteous, and all will point to God, saying, "This is our God, whom we have hoped for in this life." A circle dance, for all points in a circle are equidistant from the center, with no one closer than another. The differences between Korach on the one hand and Isaiah and the Talmud on the other lies in timing as well as aspiration. While the prophet and the Agadah describe a desired future, Korach is intimating that this vision is true in a particular political context in his own time. According to the Talmud, Korach brought out 250 prayer shawls, talitot, to illustrate this, and they were all dyed completely blue, a color with a connotation of holiness, as a visual aid to demonstrate the sanctity of the Jewish people. Wearing it as a uniform, together with the notables of Israel he had lured to his side, he taunted Moses. How could the commandment of tzitzit, which reminds one to look at the single thread of blue attached to the fringes of a four-cornered garment, be relevant when compared with talitot that are totally blue? This example alone begins to reveal the totalitarian territory to which Korach is headed. While a talit, as we know it, has only a single thread of blue running through the fringes of its four corners, Korach's all-blue version posits some unified, otherworldly abstract that totally erases the performance of any particular mitzvah, ethical and ritual act. In the sparring match that follows, Moses shows he understands completely the motivation underlying his cousin's rhetoric. "It is you who are overreaching yourselves, you sons of Levi," he cries. "Does it seem a small thing to you that the God of Israel has separated you and sanctified you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to him to perform the service of the sanctuary?" Here the Ishbitzer raises an interesting point. When God gave Korach the status of a Levite, he didn't turn it down on the grounds that nobody in Israel should be higher in status than anyone else. For all the intrinsic truth of Korach's words about the holiness of each Jew, he himself did not live by his own teaching. Otherwise, he would have demurred, as Moses initially did, from being part of a hierarchy. Jews believe in equality. The fact that he found no problem with it shows that his real motivation was to take over the high priesthood for himself. Despite his eloquent espousal of equality as an ethical value, he exposed himself as a power seeker incapable of sharing. With this realization, Moses proposes to Korach and his following that they take part the next day in a spirituality contest, in which Aaron and all of Korach's party compete with incense offerings. That's the highest of the offerings. However, only one, the one holiest and closest to God, would emerge from this ordeal alive. The rest, like Aaron's own sons, Nadav and Avihu, who dared bring their censers into the Holy of Holies unbidden, would be consumed with fire. "Don't turn to their offering," Moses pleads with God. Why would it even have entered his head that he might? The fact that Korach and his faction accepted Moses' conditions again negated Korach's words. If indeed he believed in equality, why would he have agreed to Moses' terms? Only one would be the winner, and he believed it would be him. His own following would die, but what did he care? He was only exploiting them for his own ends. According to the Ishbitzer, the 250 men in Korach's contingent were the noblest of the Jewish people. Wishing to attain holiness like Aaron's own sons before them, they achieved this, but tragically perished in the process. Korach was clever enough to understand the stakes, yet was driven by the ambition to be the last one standing at the expense of his followers. His actions betray his language as empty rhetoric, and his true motivation as rooted in pure ego. In vindication of Moses and his mission, God has the earth open her mouth and swallow Korach and his faction swallow up Korach and his faction, with the 250 notables were indeed consumed with holy fire. Did any of Korach's following find some mysterious holding station underground and escape? The Ishbitzer returns to precisely this verse. All the community is holy, and God is in their midst. While the speaker said this to manipulate the public, Nevertheless, the language in which it is expressed contains an eternal truth. Because of this, King David saw fit to rescue not only some of Korach's surviving descendants, but Korach himself, by reattaching their poetic talent to its root and tracing some of the psalms attributed to them back to their origin, as it says in King David's Tehillim. A psalm for the sons of Korach. Korach's children, or the few who repented, survived to take their place as leading musicians in the divine service. Although we must be wary of the specious use of language and the media, and indeed of any form of communication, the suggestion is that even the trappings and children of goodness will ultimately find their true function in the divine service. Shabbat Shalom.